What's going on, everybody? Robert here with RC Archery for another Tuesday's tip of the week with a very cobweb covered camera and tripod because it's been a while. But you can only tell somebody how to send it so many times before you start repeating yourself and starting to sound geriatric. So with that being said, today's video, I'm going to be going over a couple key tips. They're going to help you stabilize your aim on target. It's going to help you draw with the correct muscles that also help you hold steadier when you're at full draw. And I'm going to teach you how to anchor using two areas of your body, your bow hand and your elbow, to help you keep from dipping down on target and holding low, and also to help you steady your float and aim it at the middle of what you're looking at. All right, guys, there is a couple different steps to this. The first one that I'm going to be talking about is our draw motion. And I have gone over this before as far as setting the bow shoulder, but I've never really gone over this topic on how to set your rear shoulder, your scapula that you're going to use to actually hold yourself steadier at full draw, and how to get into your anchor without disturbing what you've just set up. And the reason this is important is because we have to use the larger muscles in our body that tire out slower, that build the lactic acid slower than our smaller muscle groups in our body. So our back, our scapula, our shoulders, much bigger and larger muscle groups in our forearms, biceps, and anything in between there. So another reason that we want to draw correctly using the right muscles is to relieve the tension in our forearm and in our hand. Because no matter if you're using a thumb release, a hinge release, or whatever you have in your hand, even an index finger release, the softer that we can have our forearm and our hand, the better that release is going to move, the less deviation in sight picture we're going to see, and the less we're going to be apt to punch that release or have any kind of jumps or movements in our sight picture. So what we want to do is concentrate on using the larger muscles here in our back, and this is going to be our muscles that surround the scapula. So we're going to use those. We're also going to use the muscles here at the top of our neck, or base of our neck rather, and going down to the top of our shoulder, and then using a little bit of our shoulder muscles as well, because that's going to be involved as we're coming through. The idea behind this is going to force you into having correct draw weight for you. If your bow is set up with a draw weight that is too heavy for you to effectively draw, this is not going to work for you. You're going to struggle really badly with this, could potentially hurt yourself. So if you're overbowed, back it down, get a new bow that's easier to draw for you, and allow yourself maximum accuracy. The other side of this is you're going to have to build these muscles up, and you're going to see that it's probably hard for you to do this at first if you've never done this. And if you have even done this some, it's going to you're going to see that you tire out pretty quickly if you're not used to doing this. So if you're a target archer and you're shooting a full Vegas round or a 5-spot round, towards the end of those rounds you're going to feel it and you're going to wear out, and that's okay, because eventually you'll get better with it and you'll end up seeing that it's not bothering you so bad, like the bee that was swarming me just then. So let me get into what it looks like for the drawing motion, and as I'm doing this, I'm going to give you some mental cues and some focal points that's going to help you understand this and what we're doing. All right, guys, so the reason I said that we can't be overbowed when we're doing this is because we have to be able to draw using the correct level of where our bow hand is, our release hand, and the direction that we're pulling this arm backwards. Our scapula is designed to move kind of laterally, left and right. So it's moving in towards our spine, away from our spine, towards our spine, away from our spine. If we're overbowed and our bow is way up here and we're having to really crank down and come this way, the scapula is still moving towards our spine, but we start using more like bicep, forearm, and we stop getting away from actually using our scapula muscles to actually pull the bow back to full draw. So what we want to do is be really careful, and a focal point to look at whenever we're drawing this is the scapula itself, and think of it as actually moving away from your target as you're drawing. Still want to have your bow hand up above the bow shoulder just slightly, because that's going to allow you to set that bow shoulder like we've talked about before, but your hand needs to be here in this position, and you need to draw it straight back. And you need to feel that elbow and that scapula come back towards your spine as you're drawing and going through that motion. So I'm gonna do it one more time here without talking, let you see kind of a normal drawing motion, but really focus on wanting to bring your scapula over towards your spine and pulling it away from your target, because that's gonna help you, by focusing on that muscle group, it's gonna help you use it versus more so with your arm because you're just focused on pulling a bow back. All right, now the second part to this is what we do with our release hand and our arm from our elbow towards our release when we get to full draw. And a lot of the times what you're gonna see an archer do is as they get back here, they use their scapula and they loaded the right muscles and they did really good, and they get to full draw, they go to anchor and their hand is below their jaw, so they need to get it to their jaw, and they bring the elbow and everything up to their face. When you do that, you lose the muscle loading that you just did with your scapula, and you're actually directing it into more of the shoulder, the bicep, and the forearm in your hand. So you'll feel that tension there. What we need to do instead is, as we get to full draw and we're here and we bring our hand over to our face to bring it up, we want to hinge at our elbow and actually bring it up from the elbow. So I'm not bringing the elbow up, the elbow is staying here because it's set in place now, and I'm bringing the hand to the face. This does a couple things. One, what we talked about, it relieves the tension in your forearm and your bow hand, or your release hand rather, but also what it does is it allows us to go into the second stage of this, and that's using our elbow as an anchor point. So I'm gonna show you this really quickly here. I'm gonna draw my bow back and let you see what that looks like. I'll over exaggerate and slow it down so that you can really see the movement that you're wanting to search for here. All right guys, the last step here and what we're looking for is, again, using our rear elbow as an anchor, and then our other anchor that we're gonna use is our bow hand. And everybody's a little bit different with this. What I prefer is, I prefer to use the bottom portion of the hand here and actually shove the bottom of my hand into the bow. So I don't have hardly any pressure towards the top webbing part of my thumb. And the reason I do that is because it's helping lift the bow up, but it also allows me to run a little bit heavier front weighted system. I get a better aim with that. I can control what I'm seeing with large movements if I'm, jerk or do anything crazy in my aim. And especially if I'm, ever shooting outdoors, it helps with the wind too, because I have a more front weighted system, so it's less likely to move around. You don't have to do that if you're more comfortable with a different grip pressure, being mid grip or a high risk grip where you're pushing more of the web. Whatever works for you, I'm just telling you that's what works for me. But that is our forward anchoring position and what we're looking at towards the target. So when I'm doing this and I'm getting into full draw, I'm essentially creating a straight line from this bow hand where it's connecting at the base of the hand and the wrist to my rear elbow where it's pulling away from the target and down. So that's when we're loading the scap here, and I'm talking about bringing the hand up and allowing it to hinge at the elbow. That is loading this in a positive manner to hold that elbow, and it's gonna feel like it's pulling out and down from the target, and that's actually gonna help us hold up on the target at full draw. And you can manage this by what I've talked about before as expanding into your shot and expanding into anchor and creating the tension in our body to help us hold steadier on target. And this is the exact same thing. As we get to full draw and as we're getting our pin or our dot on the target, we're lowering that elbow down a little bit as we anchor and kind of expanding out at the body with our bow hand and our release arm and that scapula and that elbow area kind of coming down and back until we see our steadiest sight picture on target, until we see the right height of what we want to see with our pin and our dot on target. So that's what we're looking for. And I use that elbow when I'm at full draw as an anchor point of how I'm actually holding the tension and holding my body still at full draw. Because if I think my hand or my forearm, then that tenses up and it doesn't allow the release to work. And by doing this, you can literally use the release in any form or fashion that you want to. My preferred method is to actually curl my middle finger and almost think about slowly squeezing a trigger whenever I'm shooting, because that's what works best for me. But you could relax your index. You can continue to kind of expand and pull through a shot if you wanted to do it that way, and any multitude of anything in between that as well. So it's going to work universally because you've released the tension from your hand as much as possible to still hold on to the release and still be active in your shot. But that elbow is the key to being able to get it in there and getting it down. I'm going to give you a view here of me actually aiming at a target and running through my shot. The first one, I'm going to talk you through the complete process, and then I'll show you a complete shot without me talking, just so you can see everything as well. All right, first things first, good drawing motion. Thinking pulling that scapula away from the target in a linear fashion, left to right, bringing it into the spine. And then as I'm getting into anchor, letting my release hand come up to my chin, letting that disconnect from the elbow to go up so my elbow isn't going up, and then allowing myself to be able to have that as my elbow as my anchor point so that I can pull down and back on that target and watch my sight picture steady for me. That's the full entire process of what you're looking for there. All right guys, there we have it. That's another Tuesday's tip of the week to help you have a direction on how we're drawing the bow back and some anchor points and some mental cues to look at. Hopefully this will help you guys. I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.